Welcome to A Mason's Work, the podcast where we review Masonic symbols and illustrate how they can be used to solve problems in everyday life. With your host, Brian Mattox, a proud member of the Craftsman Online Media Network.
At a systemic level, the Plumb is all about this non-negotiable sort of reference point, this non-negotiable grounding, that all systems that are designed to create lasting change and improvement, all systems that survive the test of time, have a grounding to a moral purpose or a moral orientation. That those systems, without it, that are just delivering, whatever they might be, they're delivering something that does not speak to that grounded sort of human condition, the grounded human experience, the moral connection between kind of the overall world outside and the sort of design intent of that system. Without that, external pressures will essentially force those systems to collapse. When you have a grounded system, when you have a system that is aligned to values, what happens is that system is allowed to change and adapt. The values remain the same, but the situations and how it responds are allowed to move as needed. So if we look at this in the form of a company, right? A company that essentially focuses on providing high nutrition, for example, will be able to adapt through ingredient changes, through weather changes, through all of the kinds of things that would impact an organization that's trying to make food. If you're instead focused on making burgers, right? If there is a wheat shortage, your ability to make burgers may be jeopardized. If there is a beef shortage, your ability to make burgers may be jeopardized. When you're focused on the outcomes rather than the design intent, you lose a bunch of flexibility and you become rigid, and rigid systems tend to collapse. Which is strange, right? Because it seems like there's this almost a dualistic interpretation here that rigidity of the system and alignment of values both seem like rigid things. They seem like rigid concepts, but that alignment to values allows those values to be expressed through the way the organization operates, and it allows the outcomes of that organization to change and move. Whereas being attached to the outcomes you're creating or being aligned to creating a specific X or Y or Z in your culture does create this organization that's going to have a hard time sort of standing the test of time. I'll give you another example. When you're focused on, for example, the core value is, let's say, housing, right? You create a nonprofit and its entire purpose is to essentially house the unhoused. That task seems huge, right? But at the same time, it has a built-in end date. Housing the unhoused is, in theory, a endable problem. And when that outcome is achieved, you're going to get to a place where that organization essentially will have to redefine a new one. It doesn't have that same center of gravity. It had a purpose-driven direction, but or an outcome-driven direction, but it didn't have a values-driven direction. When we talk about, an organization of a similar nature, we might talk about somebody that has sets up a nonprofit to create, let's say, sustainable housing that pays homage and respects the environment. That quest is likely never ending, right? Because science and technology is going to allow us to adapt to the housing needs. You can still have the objective, in your pipeline there to make sure everyone has housing, to give everyone housing. At the same time, that sustainability component, the fact that you want it in harmony with nature, creates this kind of perpetual chase for the harmony in nature. But it also aligns to essentially that strong value proposition, that strong core value, that the organization is going to essentially have this built-in flexibility to achieve that objective however they see fit. If I define housing as a 200 square foot studio or 300 square foot studio apartment, make sure everybody has one of those, I'm again rigidly locked in. Whereas if I say, I want people to have a place to live that is in harmony with nature, and I'm not going to define what that is, I'm just going to suggest that we're going to pursue this as a direction. I now have an organization aligned to a sort of a gravitational pull that does have that flexibility that we're looking for. This systemic understanding of the Plumb is moving from, again, almost like an outcome-driven mission statement to a values-driven mission statement that allows the outcomes to flex as they need to.
The views represented in this podcast are those of the speaker alone and are not representative of any grand or subordinate lodge.
Hi, Brian here. I wanted to thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you have any suggestions or guidance for further episodes you'd like to see or hear, whatever the case may be, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at amasonswork.com, and we will try and incorporate your suggestions into a future recording. Thanks.
Freemasonry teaches us that the true work is within, a lifelong journey of reflection, discipline, and discovery. At A Mason's Work, we help Masons bring out their best selves through meaningful self-inquiry and symbolic practice. From personal reflection to lodge engagement, we offer tools that turn symbols into action. Visit us at amasonswork.com. The work is within. The time is now.